Welcome to Illuminating Catholics, podcast of the Diocese of Sioux City. I'm Dawn Prosser, Director of Communications for the Diocese. Together with Carmen Bauer of the Faith Formation Office, we will shed light upon topics of faith in the modern church. Our guests include Catholic clergy, religious sisters, and other experts in their fields to help us understand what's happening in the church today. We will explore issues, even the tough ones, and to find answers to common questions about Catholicism. Thank you for joining us for today's Illuminating Catholics, shedding light to understand the modern church. Welcome back to the Illuminating Catholics podcast of the Diocese of Sioux City. I am Dawn Prosser, and I am the Director of Communications for the Diocese. And I apologize that our wonderful co-host, Carmen Bauer, cannot be here today, but I promise she will be back for the next episode. So April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, where we as a nation, we come together with awareness and education to help families and communities prevent child abuse and neglect. Our guest today is a mental health therapist who works with children and adolescents as well as adults. And I would like to welcome Shalea Schloss of Catholic Charities. We're so glad to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Very exciting. So I'm just going to jump right into it. And if people don't know you, because I think you're kind of new to Catholic Charities, if you want to just tell us a little bit about your background, your family, your education.
Absolutely. So yes, I'm relatively new to Catholic Charities. I've actually been here a year. I celebrated my 1 year back in March.
Congrats.
And well, thank you. I appreciate that. Prior to being here at Catholic Charities, I was actually at the Mercy One Child Advocacy Center for a little over a year. So that was a great experience in itself. So I found it a little kind of full circle to be asked to be on here, considering my employment history. So I grew up in a small farm community in South Central Minnesota. Everybody who goes to probably the cities probably drives right past it. It's called St. James. My parents still have a house there. My sister still lives there, so we get to go back and enjoy time there. My grandparents still live there on their farm. So I got to be a pseudo farm kid, as I like to say, because my grandparents lived on a farm. My grandpa was a farmer until he retired. And so it was a lot of enjoyment. After I graduated high school, I traveled out this way, or I always say I meandered out this way to Vermillion, South Dakota, where I went to the University of South Dakota. I have a bachelor's of art in psychology. And then I also have a master's in social work from the University of South Dakota. So I guess you can say I'm a coyote through and through. No diss to the jackrabbits out there.
Well, I'm sure there's coyote fans listening. I'm sure
there probably is. So I have been out in this area since I came out here after high school. I met my husband out here when I was a little bit in between the summer of my sophomore and junior year. He was one of my coworkers, and it was kind of funny that he thought I was the cute new girl, and I thought that this is this weird guy who keeps asking me these weird questions. So he
great.
eventually grew on me. We've been married for almost 12 years. We've got two beautiful kids, a daughter named Coraline, who's 9, and then a 3-year-old son named Kelvin. So we keep ourselves busy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure you do.
Yeah.
You do. So you talked a little bit about where you went to school and so forth. So, and with that undergrad in psychology, so what made you think I want to go into this type of work with mental health?
I love this question because I get to nerd out a little bit about
nerd away.
Health. I get to nerd out a little bit about mental health. So a couple of things brought me into the mental health field. On a personal basis, I have quite a bit of people around me who live day in and day out with mental illness. A couple of my siblings, some of their significant others, friends, family, other family, who live day in and day out with mental health issues. And seeing as I've grown up, or when I was growing up, how much I felt like a lack of, I can't do anything about that because I'm not old enough. I don't have the education to, and or I don't have the licensure to. I felt so like I couldn't do anything. And so when I got the opportunity to finally nail down a major, I think my parents, when I told them like psychology is what I'm doing, they were like, thank goodness, because we cannot take another week of you coming home telling us that you changed your major again.
Sounds like a
When,
parent.
oh yeah, my parents every weekend they're like, okay, so what's your major this week? It's I'm like, I'm finding it. Let me find it. But like once I finally nailed it down, it was just the field that called to me. I was like, this is what I want to do. I've always wanted to be a therapist since I was like a sophomore in college, and I have taken many detours, but have always just kind of circled back to mental health. I've always been fascinated with like human behavior. Even as like a young child, I would always ask like, how come you do that? I mean, just like somebody having like a little tick or something. I'd ask like, why do you do that? Where does that come from? And just understanding like the reason behind things. And then just wanting like just being super fascinated on like just mental health illnesses. I nerd out like like I said about this type of stuff. It is so fascinating to me about how did we get here? How did you get here? There's always a story behind those types of things. And so I just love this field. Somehow, some way, I always find myself back.
It must be where God needed you to be.
I truly feel that. I truly feel that that's exactly considering, I mean, how many times I changed my major, doesn't really matter. Like, I will go off to a job that's not fully out of the mental health field, but a little bit out of like the one-on-one therapy stuff. But it's always been in my heart, always.
Awesome. So, can you tell us? You mentioned that you worked at the Childhood Advocacy Center here in Sioux
Hmm.
City through Mercy One. It's a wonderful,
Hmm.
wonderful facility.
Yes.
If you want to give people, if they're not familiar with it, maybe a nutshell of what the CAC does, and then talk a
Yeah.
little bit about the work that you did there.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to give a quick shout out to the Mercy One Child Advocacy staff. They're a group of just beautiful women who have come together for a common cause, and that's to protect and to give children a voice when it's been taken away from them. And that's truly what child abuse is. Their voice has been stolen from them. And so, if you are unaware of what a child advocacy center is, it is a place where children can go to tell their story. There are trained professionals who are called forensic interviewers who are specifically trained in a fashion to where they can ask open-ended questions of children to help tell their story and to help investigators, whether that be law enforcement or Department of Human Services workers, investigate a potential sexual, physical, a mental health, or a mental abuse or even neglect on that child. So it's a specific way of asking questions so that they're not leading children to a certain answer. They're not um, making children feel as if I have to have a specific answer, anything like that. So they've got some very well trained forensic interviewers out there. It is amazing. I was always amazed when I was given the opportunity to watch interviews, their techniques and how they were able to maneuver. It was almost like watching MacGyver. It was just fascinating. Um, Also a part of like the CAC is that they also have advocacy. services. So here at the Mercy One Child Advocacy, they provide advocacy services for the family as a whole. So that would be guardians and the child. And information is provided. When I was working there, we always wanted to make sure that parents and guardians were fully informed about this is what this process is, this is what this looks like. Just providing as much support as possible. This is one of the most scariest, egregious, just heart-shattering thing that can happen to a parent or a guardian. And so sometimes parents and guardians, they harbor shame and guilt and anger of themselves. Like, how could I have missed this? Why didn't I see this? How could I have not protected my child? And so the role of the family advocate is to just let that parent or those guardians or whomever know, like, there was little way for you to know. So give yourself some grace. Give yourself a physical or an emotional hug because there's reasons behind why kids don't disclose right away, why they wait several years, or maybe it accidentally came out through either somebody else or they accidentally said something. So that's another service that's provided there. Other service is that they can do examinations. So if there's possible physical abuse or sexual abuse, a SANE, so that's a sexual assault nurse examiner, can come, or there already is one at the CAC who will do like a physical exam, almost like the same one that would be done at a pediatrician. So they check the kiddo head to toe, check the ears, eyes, nose, and then if there's any suspicious bruising, suspicious injuries to the body, they're able to take photographs. They're able to be able to collect that evidence. They're able to do what we call like before they were called sexual assault kits. So that's where they can go and collect any evidence in the private parts area to be able to be sent off to be checked for DNA or anything like that. So, and they can ask questions in a different way that forensic interviewers can't. So, if some information may be missed, or if it's um, not gathered, or for whatever reason, they can also go in and get some more information as well.
Mhm.
And then last but not least, then there's also mental health services, so therapy services. And the beautiful thing about the Mercy One Child Advocacy Center's therapy services is any child who is forensically interviewed, first and foremost, after their interview, they're always screened, or at least most of the time screened for trauma symptoms. And after they are screened for trauma symptoms, if they score for trauma, so it's a highly likely chance that that child has either post-traumatic stress disorder or an acute stress disorder, or anything along those lines, they're able to receive mental health services for free. It's an amazing thing. Many people mental health services, many people don't seek them out or they don't stay very long because of how much it costs. And especially for children who endure that, it's just another burden like taken off the parent's shoulders and taken off that child's shoulders. So the mental health therapist is a licensed therapist or a licensed social worker who is trained in trauma treatment, typically like trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy, which I don't know who would know what that is. But like it's an evidence-based type of therapy that helps children understand that it's not their fault, take away like negative thoughts that they may have about themselves, the world, people in the world, thinking that it's unsafe or it's their fault that it happened, so on and so forth. So, those are some of the services or those are the services, most of the services that are provided at the CAC here in Sioux City. They also do education stuff. I forgot that. They do a program called Subs. So Stand Up, Be Safe, where they get to go into some of the elementary schools or some of the middle schools to educate kids about, what are the different types of child abuse, what happens, when somebody is trying to hurt you, and how do we tell? How do we tell somebody that something has happened, or maybe a friend has told that something has happened? Just giving them the information needed to help protect them, keep them safe, and give them power to feel like even though this person said that if I do tell something bad's gonna happen, knowing that everything will be okay, and I can tell and I can talk about this. So,
We're so blessed to have that CAC in our region. And I do want to
mhm.
say that it's not just a Sioux City based entity, and yes,
Mm-mm.
it's Catholic backing. I know that
Yes.
I know if anyone knows me, I know law enforcement from around the region will
Hmm.
bring
Yes.
victims in. So it
Yep.
really serves the region. It's definitely not just
Yes,
a Sioux City
absolutely.
based.
Yep.
We are blessed with that. So,
Yes.
switching to another wonderful Catholic
Yes.
organization, you now work with Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Sioux City out
Hmm.
of the Sioux City
Hmm.
office. And
Yes.
I saw on the website that you work with children, adolescents, and adults. Do you want to just
Yes.
talk to us a little bit about the work that you do at Catholic Charities?
Yeah, absolutely. So just like Dawn said on the website, I do work with children, teenagers, and adults. I work with kiddos as young as 4 and into like adults all the way up to however old. Yeah, so I get a wide span of people. My specialties are in trauma therapy with children and teenagers, because I do a lot of work with that, having my experience at the Child Advocacy Center and experience with USD working with their sexual assault prevention program. I also specialize in like depression, anxiety, a lot of things. Pretty much whatever you come into the door and whatever you walk into my office, I will always try to help in the best way possible. And if I know that I can't, then I will either refer you on to one of my colleagues or somebody that I know in the community who I trust wholeheartedly. So that's kind of what I do here at the at Catholic Charities. So.
Are you primarily office based people coming in and telehealth, or do you go out to schools? What does your position entail?
All of the above.
Okay.
I go into the schools for part of the day on Monday, so 1 day a week. And then I have a couple of people who are telehealth. And then I spend quite a bit of time in the office. So I always try to meet people where they're at. So if there's like transportation issues, like, hey, do you have internet? Let's do it via telehealth. Or if a kiddo is in need of some services in the school, I always try to figure out like how can I fit them in um, into my schedule on that Monday and just, however I can assist, and get them to session. Anybody, I'm definitely down.
You mentioned with the CAC, and I'm sure it's very true at Catholic Charities as well, that cost usually is something that would keep people from seeking help.
Yeah.
How does Catholic Charities help families who may need some assistance?
So Catholic Charities here, we always make sure to tell clients that expensive, like the expense of therapy should never be a barrier. So some of the things that we can do is do like a sliding scale fee. That's something that clients will have to apply for. And that's pretty much like some of the things that we do is that sliding scale fee. We might be able to get funds together, emergency funds together to pay for that. But we're always willing to work with a client on can we set up a payment plan? Like, how much can you pay during this session? Or great, wonderful. If it's $5, cool. That's something. We never want to have finances or payment be a barrier to receiving services. We understand that mental health is incredibly important. and that people can only give what they can give. So,
You mentioned Mondays you go into schools. Is it like a different school every week? I
yes.
mean, it's not like just I just only go to this one school.
Oh no, no, no. I do go to the same schools
Hmm.
every Monday.
Okay.
I kind of do a loop. So I might start off at Sacred Heart here in Sioux City, go all the way down to St. Michael's, and then come back up to Blessed Sacrament. So like I said, I call it my loop on Monday mornings.
And then Nate Phillips is also in the schools, school
Yes,
base. And
Nate.
is there a third person as well?
Yes, yes. We recently hired on Morgan Trometer back in, I believe, January, I want to say. So Nate was in the schools full time, and now Nate has transitioned back to the office, being here full time here in office, and then spending 1 day a week out in the schools. And I'm not 100% sure what school he is
That's
in,
okay.
but yes, so Nate is still in the schools at least 1 day a week. Morgan is our full-time school-based therapist who travels all over like the this area. Going all the way, I believe, to maybe Spencer, Pocahontas area, maybe down to Denison. I mean, she travels.
Yes.
Uh,
Sounds like
she
it.
travels.
That's great to
And
have
then
that.
yeah, and then I forgot one of our other therapists, Denise. She travels all the way to Storm Lake. So we've got a couple of people here in the office that do school-based
Mhm.
therapy. And we try to cover as big of an area of Iowa, rural Iowa, I should say, of rural Iowa as much as we can.
It's such a blessing, especially to
Yeah.
some of the smaller schools in the more rural areas.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
believe Denise is bilingual, English, Spanish,
Yes.
and
Yes.
there's a lot of Spanish speakers in Storm Lake. So
Yes.
that is wonderful to have that presence of Catholic
Yes.
Charities there. So,
Mm-hmm.
as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and we always like to give people, how can you help and so forth. A lot of us that
Yeah.
work in the Catholic Church. And I remember I was in that very first wave when we did the first Virtus trainings,
Yeah.
and that had to be in the early 2000s. So, and
Yeah.
it helped us as employees and volunteers to recognize some red flags, some things that maybe just don't look right.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we get monthly bulletins that we read on something new. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I've been doing that for a while reading those.
Wonderful.
But we
Wonderful.
we can't know everything, and you are a
Right.
trained therapist. I am
Hmm.
not. So as just general people, uh, there's a large component of this month is awareness. How can you
Hmm.
help us share with us the prevalence of abuse so that we can be aware and then looking for that?
Sure, absolutely. Per studies, it's been seen that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 13 girls have experienced sexual abuse at some point in their life. And with that said, it's really, really, really important to be able to go out there and talk with kids about, what does it look like? How to protect, not just, like keep yourself safe, keep siblings safe, keep just anybody and everybody safe. And so just if you're somebody who's wondering like, okay, so how do I kind of see if somebody may have had something? So a couple of things that if you notice these, get suspicious for like physical abuse. If you see bruising in areas or bruising that just doesn't make sense, or significant injuries that just aren't adding up, that would be one thing. If you see like children being like they're like retreating a little bit, they're isolating, any aggression, fear of going home or being around certain people, for like sexual abuse, if children test positive for like STI, if they're walking or sitting funny, for children, depending on the age, if they have a lot of knowledge about sexual things, that's a really big indicator, like something may be going on. If they're doing like suggestively sexual things, that's also an indicator. Again, if they're looking withdrawn, just passive, if you're like, this isn't my kiddo, like temperament wise, this isn't my kiddo, something feels different about them, get suspicious, absolutely get suspicious. Uh, One of the things that the Child Advocacy Center always tries to make sure that parents and others out in the community are aware of is first and foremost, if you're a parent of a toddler age kid who is just learning words, make sure that you're teaching them the appropriate name for body parts. It may feel uncomfortable. It might feel a little wrong that, a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old knows what the anatomically correct name for body parts is. However, over decades, it's been found that nicknaming body parts has been more detrimental than it has been helpful. It gets people think like for instance, cookie has been used for like genitals, and a child comes up and says, "Somebody touched my cookie." Well, if you're thinking about that on surface layer, okay, somebody touched your cookie, like it's not that big of a deal. However, if you look at the depth of that, oh, cookie is what they use to name that, okay, then we've got a problem there. So that's one of the biggest things that I highly encourage and that is encouraged. Make sure that you're teaching children the correct name for body parts. On top of that, it's just teaching children about what is called grooming, but in the end, what it is that it's manipulating children into not talking about it. Grooming or manipulation is that just that it's a tactic that individuals who are hurting children sexually or physically, they're using different tactics to make that child not want to talk. So whether that would be providing them gifts or giving them gifts, showering them with love and trust and compliments, or even on the worst side of things, which would be threats. If you tell, you're going to get in trouble, I'm going to get in trouble, parents are going to get in trouble. If you tell, I'm going to hurt you, I'm going to hurt your parents, any which way that they can threaten to prevent that kiddo from telling. And one of the unfortunate things when it comes to behaviors like that is typically it's somebody that the kid knows. 90% and over of the kids who do endure sexual abuse or physical abuse, it's somebody they know and they love. That's also the thing is that it's somebody that they know and they love and they trust, and that individual does that for a reason. They don't just manipulate that child, but they manipulate their environment, their parents, their friends, school, just to hide under the radar, unfortunately, so that it's never suspected. And it's a gradual process. They don't just go from 0 to 60. Um, it's little kind of like little tests. Like, can I get away with this? Can I talk to them about sexual things? Can I touch things? How far can I take it? Would be the thing. And same thing with children and, talking about it. They kind of sprinkle it a little bit. They might drop little hints, might start off with a generalized statement like, what if this happens to a person? What if it happens to a friend? Oh, hey, by the way, this happened to me. So it really depends on the initial response that they give when it's like a general response. How did this person respond to when I said a person, my friend? Like, then they kind of are like, okay, this person feels safe enough to say, this happened to me.
So, and I'm going to say it's sad that we're having to have this conversation, but
Yeah.
as you said, it's prevalent. So, as a parent, a caregiver, a grandparent, so what should we do if a child in our life
That's a
is
great
showing some
question.
signs that something may have happened? What can we do? What should we do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just start off with, like, hey, I see that something's going on. Like, do you want to, what's going on? It never hurts to ask. Sometimes kids are never asked when they're looking, down and out and what have you. If they do disclose. That's what it's called when a child reports any type of abuse. When they do disclose, it's really important to basically kind of check how you're responding to it. It's super shocking when you initially hear it. For anybody who's not trained on how to respond to that, you might be thinking, oh my gosh. And that also comes out. And kiddos see that. Kiddos see like, oh, mom had such this reaction. Like, okay, well, maybe I don't want to talk to mom about it. I know that it's going to hurt her or dad or whomever. So make sure that you're aware of your nonverbals. Also be aware of your emotions. This impacts a lot of people part of that child's life. Parents go through a cycle, and it's very similar to the cycle of grief. It's really hard to believe that this has happened. I tried so hard to protect my kids, make sure that they are secure and what have you. And like, how did this happen? And they go through again this cycle of grief, anger, just trying to overprotect sometimes. And so just make sure that you're also like making sure that you're checking your emotions, checking nonverbals. Don't press them too much for information. That's one thing that people feel like I need to get everything. There is pertinent information that is needed. And the Child Advocacy Center does go around to different agencies and provides a training about what is it as a mandatory reporter that you need to know. So just get a name, ask like where did they hurt you in regards to like on your body, where did they hurt you, like place, maybe it was at home, maybe it was at school, what have you. And then once you've kind of collected that information, make a child report as soon as possible. It's really important that they get that information, and as much of that information as possible. That way they can get out there and start their investigation. If there's been any, what they call penetration, there's a certain window of time where they can collect evidence off the body, to make sure that they have that on it. If your child or you yourself have been sexually assaulted, immediately after, collect your clothes, do not shower, go to an ER, and make sure that you get yourself or the child a sexual assault kit.
I think maybe we should make clear that when you say make a report, you're talking, you contact your local
Child
law
abuse,
enforcement.
yeah. Well, you can also, well, the biggest thing would be make a child abuse report. So
And where
if
do they
you're
do
not
that?
Yeah, if you're not aware as to how to do that, you can always Google online like child abuse reporting. It'll pop up a number right there. You can also make it specifically for your state. So you can always Google child abuse report Iowa, and it'll pop up a phone number that you can call. And then you can give the details of what you know to them. If there's something that you don't know, let them, like, just tell them. They're not going to fault you for anything. And that's okay. We're not always going to have all the details of that. And that's okay. That does not prevent an investigation from being opened. It doesn't set anything back. It just be honest.
I'll put that in the show notes. We'll put that in the show notes, the Child
Wonderful.
Abuse Iowa. So if anybody
Wonderful.
unfortunately would need that, we would
Yes.
have that
Yes.
available. So obviously Catholic Charities is available for
Yes.
therapy, and there's offices all around
Yes.
our diocese, and we put that in the show
Mhm.
notes too. And
Wonderful.
and we talked about the CAC. Any other
Mhm.
help available? And we talked about the Child Abuse
Yes.
Iowa. Is there anything else
Yeah.
we're missing that people need to know about?
Yes, that's actually a really good question. So there is a local agency here in Sioux City that covers a wide range of Iowa, northwestern Iowa, called CASA. And I'm just going to check my pen because I know it. It centers against abuse and sexual assault, and they've got a lot of really amazing advocates who, if there's a court case that comes up from this, which some that happens often, they can send an advocate with the child to go and sit the child in court if parents aren't able to do that. They're a support system. They can help with protection orders. They can help with providing resources, an agency, not just specifically for like healing from sexual assault. They can help with some other resources. They've got a lot of really beautiful people. They do have a bilingual advocate who's amazing. She's just a rock star.
We'll put that in the show
Yeah.
notes as well, just to help people have those resources.
Sure.
And one of the things we say about our show is we talk about different topics, and some of them are tough. And
Yes.
today is another one of those tough topics.
Yeah.
But I do thank you, Shalea. I pronounced it
Yes.
right this time. I've been
Yes.
practicing. Thank you for spending time with us, sharing this information
Absolutely.
about what agencies are available, how to maybe recognize some red flags. We can't do enough to protect our children, the most vulnerable people.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
and we thank you for the good work that you do providing mental
thank
health
you.
care for children through adults in Northwest Iowa. And thank you for spending time with us on the podcast so we can increase awareness and protect children. And thank all of you for following Illuminating Catholics. We're getting new listeners all the time, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode and learn more about the faith.
Wonderful.
So that's
Thank
it.
you so much, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Illuminating Catholics, shedding light to understand the modern church. Follow us for more episodes on topics of the Catholic faith. For more diocesan news, visit lumenmedia.org.